Okay, this is the process of our vote.
For most of the day, classrooms all over the country were transformed into makeshift polling stations as thousands of boys and girls exercised their franchise in the first ever children's election. The children began queuing up shortly before the polls opened at 8 o'clock this morning. It was time to let their voices be heard on the issue that is most important to them. It was like clockwork once voting began. Those who had special assignments seemed to understand their roles pretty well.
My job is to make sure everyone dips their finger in the ink, they vote, go over their vote, bring the ballot back with my signature on it, place it in the ballot box and leave.
How important is your job as the presiding officer here?
Very important. I'm in charge of the whole polling booth and I make sure everything goes smoothly.
Right now we're supposed to go 3 at a time. We're supposed to go down and get 10 people and bring them up here and make sure they keep quiet, going one at a time and explain to them the procedures.
To A, you tick a 6, you have to tick one out of the 9 boxes and you fold it and you have to show me my initials before you place it in the ballot box.
The election is sponsored by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, and while certain aspects of the day's exercise included some make-believe, there were real-life lessons to be learned.
I learned today that we all as students could be able to speak out for our rights, for the betterment of this community. We all could say the different things that we want in our life, the different things we want to change, because many of us students, we might be in an abusive family and other people do not know, and as this, we can say, we can speak out and say what we want to change, the different things we want to change in our lives.
I've learned what the adults do at the elections.
I learned a lot because most students up on the street don't want education and have their parents don't have the money and they can't go to school.
He learned that children are being abused daily and that parents should understand them. And through UNICEF's help, children will know their rights and hopefully it will be positive.
The elections focused on the rights of children as defined in the UN Convention, which Belize endorsed in 1990. In the run-up to the poll, a special committee comprising children from various schools and institutions was set up to canvass the views of their peers.
The right to live in a home where people love me and treat me well, the right that nobody hurts my body or feelings, and the right to voice my opinion.
The result was the 9 rights on the ballot paper, from which the voters had to choose the one they consider most important to them.
I think it's important for the children to know their rights and so that people on the street won't abuse them.
We as the kids, we have a choice to see what we want for our country, what we can do to help. And with this, maybe the Prime Minister, the ones in politics can help us to see what is affecting our young youths today.
These include all young people, and not only those from mainstream society. Organizers made provisions to also include children between the ages of 8 and 18 who are out of school.
I think my vote, the one that I vote for, I think it will do better for the coming up generations, for the younger generation.
I understand my rights. Nobody can look for me and chance for it, so I understand my rights because I'm an education man too.
The children's election, by all accounts, went off without incident. The ballot boxes will remain sealed until counting begins in a couple of days. The results will be presented to both political parties in hopes that the desires of Belize's youngest citizens will influence future policy decisions. Patrick Jones for News 5.
And there you had it. That was our flashback this Friday, taking us back to 1998.
Wow.
When UNICEF held the first ever and so far the only children's election. I got to say, I was personally involved in that time. That was such a great flashback to see. And it was countrywide. And do you know what right came out on top?
What?
what children's right, which right that children voted was the most important?
No, I don't know.
Yes.
Okay,
it was education.
Okay.
And, I think that was a great flashback there. But we're shifting into our first conversation for today. And we're having a conversation about sexuality in the Caribbean. And we're talking about taboos and misconceptions and how this leads to some of the challenges that we see within our society today. So with us, we have Dominique Noralez and Kyle Miller of the National Youth Department. And we're also going to be joined in a bit by Joan Bruke of the Belize Family and Life Association. Good morning, and thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Thank you for having us. So today is actually National Sex Day. And it is a conversation that I think people are very fearful to have at times. But when we look within our society, and I know this is part of the work that the youth department and many other agencies focus on, it's being able to educate people properly. So let's just talk about some of the initiatives that come out of the youth department and how you guys approach this particular topic. Dominique?
Well,
Call you out.
calling me out soon.
Because she had a smile on her face, like she knows what she wants to say.
Well, the youth department, first of all, has a sexual reproductive health unit. Okay. And this unit basically focuses on giving capacity on sexual and reproductive health rights, teaching people how to use condoms, the process of putting on a condom, the process of really just knowing yourself, first of all, what you're comfortable with, the rights that come with being a human and being a sexual being. So that's what the department does in regards to sexual reproductive health.
And adding on to that, the whole seat on the National AIDS Commission. So, the department partners a lot when it comes to sexual health and sexual, being a sexual person. They partner a lot with National AIDS Commission. So we do a lot of outreach as it relates to like Ms. Dominique had mentioned, SRH, which is sexual reproductive health. And besides the sex part, again, it's just your self-esteem and all of that comes along with being, your sexual health. So it's not only about talking about sex, but it talks about you as a person. What would you do in a particular situation? What you shouldn't do? What is right? What is wrong? And those type of things.
So how receptive would folks be? What is challenging, most challenging about this, especially having to dealing with youths, and then again trying to let them understand sexual reproduction and the whole 9 yards out of that?
When it comes to in-school populations and going into our Catholic institutions, it's an immediate, they take it as an immediate look at sexuality and sexual orientation, when really it's young people are having sex. That's a reality. So what we need to do is equip them for that. So going into schools and really, because the children have no problem talking about it, but the immediate presence of a teacher makes that difficult. Presence of a principal makes that difficult. So going into schools is basically one of the challenges. The school has to give the facilitator that trust that they will facilitate information, give information that is useful and effective to the young person.
Now, here's the thing, and I know that you guys, as youth activists, will understand this more than most people do. We have the data to prove that there is a need for proper sexual and reproductive health education from a very young age. Sexual initiation begins sometimes, I can't remember the latest number, but it was at one point about 14 to 16. It's around that age for male and females. We still have an issue in this country with teenage pregnancy. We're still seeing it was 1 out of every 4 births being to a teenage mother. We still see issues of HIV and AIDS. And so we know that based on this data, there is a need for people to have the proper information to equip themselves. From your own personal experiences, and you're young people, what was the level of exposure that you got? And obviously, since you were active, you were in organizations that helped you out. But if you were to only rely on what your parents and your schools told you, and if you look at your friends, what is the level of knowledge and proper education that people are getting?
In my experience as growing up and coming up in this field, before being exposed to the youth department and SRH education and stuff like that, my resource was simply friends and television and what you hear, you know.
Lad River and Palo FM.
You know, that was basically, that was basically my education. You know, barely hearing it from your family, and that is one of the main issues that affects young people, is that talking about like family, your parents talking about sex to your child is a taboo. It's like,
that's part of it. Yeah.
It's the devil. Don't talk about it. You know, and it's very important that as a parent that you give your child this education. And if you don't know as a parent, because surprisingly a lot of parents still don't know, and they don't know the rights and the wrongs. And so if that's the case, then allow other organizations to give your child that education. It's a big help. You're not only, you know, it's not only saving that child, you're saving you as a person, as a mother, as a father, knowing that your child has been getting very good education to help with their sexual health or their health in a whole. So that is really one of the main issues as it relates to parents talking or allowing other people to educate their child about the proper information and the right information.
And Dominique, as a young woman growing up in Belize?
I had to go and find that on my own because there wasn't a discussion about it in the family, like Kyle said. There was never a discussion, like I sit down saying, the birds and the bees, this is what happens, this is how you protect yourself. There was never a conversation. So at a young age of 15, I had to go and find that. Not because I was interested in the act, but because I know that would eventually come up. So I needed to know before that and prepare myself for that.
Now, when you step into a setting where you're dealing with children, and I think the greatest concern from schools and parents is that they're very impressionable. And the biggest fear, which I guess is also a misconception, is that if you speak about sexual health, you're telling them to go out and have sex. But we've heard many times from organizations and from advocacy representatives that that's not the case. So talk about what the messages are when you approach young, impressionable minds to have this conversation about sexual and reproductive health.
Whenever you talk about, as professionals or facilitators, when you're talking about SRH and HIV and stuff like that, we always talk about the ABCs of HIV. First and foremost, we always talk about abstaining. And, you know, but we have to live with reality in terms of knowing that our children between certain ages are having sex. So first, we talk about abstain first and foremost. You know, if you are in that then we talk about, you know, you need to be careful, you need to stay with one person, you need to use a condom and stuff like that. But like I said, the discussion is always to, you know, first and foremost, encourage abstinence, and of course, being in terms of reality, letting them know how you can take care of yourself, where you can go in terms of you want treatment or to do a test or stuff like that. So that's always the approach whenever you know, you're dealing with young people and stuff.
And there's always two misconceptions about dealing with sexual and reproductive health. You immediately go to the clinical services. There are also non-clinical services. So if there is a professional counselor I need to talk to about what do I do when I'm feeling this way? Or because like I said, you can't speak to your family. Your friends are just like you, they don't know. So speaking to a professional who is child and youth friendly is also very important. And a place to go to do that is always, should always be mentioned.
And we want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Executive Director of Belize Family Life Association, Joan Bruke, at this time. And you're jumping right into the conversation now.
Yes.
But here's a great fact, because I've known Ms. Bruke for a long time in the work that she does. And I can recall at a very young age having had presentations done by you. You are a nurse, you are a trained nurse. And in fact, this is something you have been doing for many years. So the question was, looking at young, impressionable minds, providing them age-appropriate information, how does one approach that?
Okay, good morning. One correction.
Yeah.
I'm not a nurse. I'm a trained health educator.
Health educator, thank you.
Impressionable minds. We have a lot of that around,
Yes.
right? And unfortunately, we stifle those minds because as individuals, we have our own values, right? The adults of today, we grew up in an entirely different environment. Our exposure, even the information we were given, probably equipped us at the time or at that time based on the environment in which we lived. Today, we have, as parents, we have Mr. Google right. We are basically being challenged by Mr. Google because the minds that we have to deal with today, the exposure, everything is at the tip of the finger, right? And I think as parents, as adults, we are not prepared for that because we are not going at the same pace as our young people. So therefore, I believe that we have a responsibility, not to say that we're going to set aside our own values, but to work with the young people where they are.
Now,
right?
a very key part of the education that is done in this specific area is talking about negotiation skills. Now, we don't talk about that enough. Why is negotiation skills a necessary part of the education for young people? Ms. Byrne?
In anything you have to negotiate, right? There's something that I want and there's something that you want. And so therefore, when we come together, what will be, where will be that middle line, right? So that when we leave, we both leave with some level of equality, okay? Now, I have said it on the air, whenever I do sessions, I will never, ever get in front of any group of young people and condemn sex, scare them about sex, because sex is something that you enjoy. Sex is something that is part of life. But what I also say, with sex comes responsibility.
That's right.
So that negotiation point is the responsibility.
But what is that like for you right now, for you guys who are actually on the trail, talking to these youths? From back then, when we didn't have the as much influence, but we knew, well, of course, your body changes, to now when the influences are actually there firsthand. How is that like for you actually going out there, talking to these youths about it? And what's the biggest challenge of that? Because like you mentioned, Mr. Google is there and it's right there at your fingertips. How is that like for you right now?
Well, I'm not considered a youth anymore.
Yes. Go ahead. Yeah.
When we do outreaches at YAM, it's always fun for me because teaching people and dispelling the myths that they have is always good because, you know, they leave, even if they leave learning one thing, you feel good, right? So doing outreach is always, it's challenging when you have those ones who research everything and then the one thing that they find on the internet, they feel that that's true. And then you have to kind of convince them that, oh no, this is what it's like in Belize, this is what it's like for young people. So you have to it's kind of tricky, but it's fun at the same time, the learning process of teaching them about not only the sex aspect, but what comes with it, like the responsibility that Ms. Burke mentioned.
So here's one of the things that I find very weird. We don't encourage, as a society, and I always say, we don't like looking at ourselves in the mirror and facing reality. But if we were to be honest with ourselves, we have a problem talking about sexuality and sexuality as sexual human beings, not sexual orientation. We have a problem accepting particular trends within our society, like teenage pregnancy, like the STIs and STDs that we see. So we know that obviously it's taking place at a young age, but we don't want to expose children to proper education or adolescents to proper education. But I see 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds dancing and singing all the dance hall songs that talk about sex very blatantly.
And the mother did a video.
Exactly. I've had children come to audition for a summer show doing the full dance hall moves for the 6:30 and everything that is out there. So the message is being put to them already, but through the type of music that they're listening to. What are the potential, I mean, I feel that this is a dangerous situation. That's my personal opinion. But what are there any dangers in this being the sole exposure as to what sexuality is?
Okay, I remember a couple of years ago, I read an article looking at the transition of music, right? And they looked at the smooth Bob Marley type and the reggae that we really enjoyed and everything. And then that transitioned into the dance hall. And the dance hall then with the gyration and all the rest of it, which we tend to, hey, we enjoy that.
Yeah.
We have serious double standards in our society. We believe that it is very cute when we dress up our little girls with all parts of their body parts exposed. We find it sexy when a young girl, 17, 18, 19, 22, dressed with all parts of the body parts exposed, right? We find that very sexy. But yet with that then comes other things because there's an attraction. I'm putting out there my assets, right? But we are not preparing them for what comes along with that, right? We are not. And that's where the problem lies because we have the influence of social media. I look at it is so difficult for us to develop a public service announcement with positive messages and get it aired or get them aired for maybe at 50% of the airing cost or for free. But every time you turn on your television set, your radio, I feel like we're one of the countries that consume the most alcohol. All our ads, the alcohol. And then when you look what goes along with this advertisement, all the young girls and the young men rubbing up on each other and, you know, getting cool. And that is what we as a society, we love. But when we see the young person, the 13, 14, 15-year-old with the lean belly, then when we see the statistics or HIV statistics or other sexually transmitted infection statistics, when we see the young girls at the corner of the street, the street with the boy, then we want to go crazy. But we haven't done our part. We haven't done our work as parents, as the church, and as the government. Because we have to make certain decisions. We will not be able to get rid of what is happening globally. Our responsibility is to prepare our young people to survive in a global world. Not to survive only in Belize and Belize's values, right? Because when they leave, they're exposed. When your child comes out of the protection of your home, they're out there. You pass any one of the nightclubs on Friday or Saturday, it's pure young people. Alcohol, everything, and then that leads to other things. So that's where the education comes in. That's where the negotiation comes in.
But we still cannot be able, I mean, it's great that there are organizations, let's say that very clearly, BFLA being one, you talked about youth advocacy movement, the youth department, that for young people who somehow are motivated to seek out these institutions, that they will be given information that is helpful for their own personal development. But in terms of a widespread coverage, it doesn't exist. And you know, Joan, we know that even as your institution that offers a multitude of services, it's been personally attacked for even, or I should say individually attacked, for even offering this type of education.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we are seeing any change in trends that perhaps will allow us to have more of an open mind and recognize what needs to be done to help our young people. What's your take on that?
We're seeing a change in trends, yes, but negative changes.
Regressing.
Right? Exactly. Because as a Caribbean region, because this is not unique to Belize, right? And Dominique being a part of the youth movement here in Belize, and of course with extension to the Caribbean, some of our Caribbean colleagues are being faced with the same challenge. Because yes, we started with a program called the Health and Family Life Education. And that we thought would have been the answer, right? To equip young people. But when we looked at the HFLE, maybe 15 years ago, the content was appropriate then. Today, it is not. But many of our educators, our school managers, our church leaders are still stuck at that point 20 years ago and refuse for us to address the issue of comprehensive sexuality education. Even though that is something that as a country we endorsed. The Mexican Ministerial Declaration signed by the present Minister of Health and the present Minister of Education. But we haven't been able to move beyond endorsing that declaration, right? There were attempts being made, and I must commend the present Minister of Education. He had the assistance of some Peace Corps volunteers who reviewed the HFLE curriculum, made recommendation, but it was hit by the church because some people feel like things like penis, vagina, and breast are words that should not be used in the classroom. So then what else do we use? What else do we use? Right? When you find the 5 and the 6-year-old, they could tell you all the other vulgar words for the body parts, but then we don't want to address the issues.
And here's the thing, psychologists, and we'll actually have Jenny later, will tell you that it is important that young children know the proper words for their genitals.
Exactly, and that's where it starts. We will not go into the classroom and teach you about the 365 positions, one for every day and all that. That's why we call age-appropriate information. We are not stupid.
Yeah.
Right? And we are responsible, I can speak for BFLA, we are a responsible organization. But we know what we are seeing out there. Every day they walk into our clinics. Right? And I guess more and more we are becoming so frustrated. Right? Because we are seeing the effects and the results of our, and when I say our, I mean as a nation, our non-actions.
Yeah.
To really, really address these issues.
You know, I could hear the passion. I could hear the passion within you, Joan. And it seems that at this particular point, especially with topics like these and the everyday life, it seems that we're actually moving 2 steps backwards.
Okay.
How are we going to change this?
Well, I know that there are some efforts even on the part of the church, right? I know that you had this committee of which the Bishop Philip Wright and Reverend Bishop Papalut and all are a part of, right? I barely heard a little bit from, I think it was on Love FM, but we were on the road, so I couldn't get the gist of exactly what happened there. So I know that there are some discussions there. I don't know what will be the outcome. The National Youth Council, there are some commitments that they have made.
Yeah.
Right? We just had the launch of the children's agenda. Yesterday, I haven't gotten a chance to look at that, so I cannot speak to it. But I am hoping that a part of that agenda is to address the true issues being faced by our children today in regards to the whole issue of sexual and reproductive health and sexuality. We have the 2030, the development plan, right? We are not short of plans at all.
Plans address the issue of
but the first thing is to bring all the stakeholders to the table and really let us speak in the interest of those who are affected. The church has its role, the government has its role, civil society has its role. And we have to ensure that we create a space to engage parents.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Parents,
because they never got the education either.
Exactly, and we are depending on the parents, the 15 and the 16-year-old who didn't get the information, who unfortunately became a parent at 17, and we keep saying the responsibility to talk about sex lies within the hands of the parents. Whilst that might be true, but the parents don't have the information.
So, you know, there's also legislation that hinders the possibilities of being able to offer the best foundation when it comes to education and sexual and reproductive health. One of the things that is often discussed is the fact that the age of sexual consent is 16. Which means legally at that age, you can say, yes, I will have sex with you. There has been a move to change it to 18 for a long time. So at 18, you can choose who will lead your country. You can choose to drink alcohol, but you can make an even more life-changing decision at 16. So that was one of the issues. But also, it has implications when it comes to reaching out for healthcare. And that is something that the BFLA clinic has been speaking about for quite some time. That if a child at 16 who has legally made the decision to engage in sexual activity, they cannot go and seek any form of checkup, any form of perhaps treatment that they would like to have at any healthcare institution without parents' consent.
Yeah.
What this is also a double standard that we're talking. So I can make the decision about what I do to my body individually, but not how I will access the supplementary health care for it.
Or to be given the services that I need to make responsible decisions.
Yeah.
You have
or
said to me,
education before I make the decision.
You say to me, hey, at the age of 16 I can have sex, but you not dare go to no clinic for no contraceptive. You not dare let me see you in any store to buy any condoms, right? And yes, I know. Then we will say, hey, but we need to increase the age of consent.
Yeah.
I've heard discussions saying that, hey, the age of consent should be 25, right? If it's 16 right now, and we have, because if somebody engages in sexual activities under the age of 16, then that is rape.
Yeah.
Yet, when we have the 13, the 14, and the 15-year-old becoming pregnant, you never hear of anybody
being charged,
right? Being charged with rape. And then now we want to take it to 18, we want to take it to 25. But are we then preparing these young people to deal with the changes? Because it's not only about making the decision to have sex, but all the other changes, because they're going through, there's the issue of puberty, there are many other things bombarding these young people, right? The hormonal changes and all that they don't even know what is happening. They don't even understand. Yes, they're acting out. One morning, as a young man, he gets up, he finds the brief wet, he think he peed the bed. One got very ashamed, don't speak to anybody about it because they don't want him, he doesn't want anybody to think that he wet the bed, right? And it happens, and every time he doesn't understand what is happening with him. The young girl who is not prepared for the onset of menarche, who doesn't understand that, hey, listen now, your body now is transitioning into this period now where you can become pregnant. Who is preparing her for that? Nobody. Because we feel that there's a special age that you're supposed to engage him in that. Yet we are seeing 9-year-old and 10-year-old who are already menstruating and don't have a clue what's going on. Right? So for us at BFLA, yes, it is challenging, but we have a policy. We do not turn any young person away because that's an opportunity for meaningful intervention. And like I always say to staff, if anybody will take anybody to court, take me to court. Take me.
What are some of the things, if we reflect on our society at 2017, and we know the challenges we see. I mean, I always tell people the frequency that we hear of very terrible cases of sexual assault and sexual violence, it is amazing what is happening in this country, and we still don't want to talk about it. The amount of victim blaming, if I can say very clearly, you know, that we hear within society, that we shouldn't educate them at 14, 15, and then when they have an allegation of rape, then a lot of people say, well, what is she doing out at that hour? Oh, I've seen her out before.
Why should you dress like that?
Okay, so I want us to take a sober look at Belize at 2017 when it comes to the specific area of our sexuality and how we are raising our children. And what would you like to see changed the most at this point? And let's start with the youths.
Dominique?
What I would love to see, and this comes from my background at BFLA and YAM, I would love to see comprehensive sexuality education throughout the education system. I got an opportunity to sit in the country implementation plan review with CEOs and ministers and officials from the government. And there was a marked increase in the number of HIV diagnoses in the country in 2015. And I took the opportunity to ask Dr. Ayala, why did that happen? Because I know in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was this huge push for HIV awareness and education. So what happened to the 25-year-olds? And there was a predominance in young men. So where did we miss the ball? What happened? How do we not know? And his response was, oh, there's this new view where, okay, they have treatment, so it doesn't matter if I get HIV or not. You know, and that was
the evidence.
Shocking to hear, you know. Why choose to live with HIV? Why have risky behavior that may lead to that? No matter if you could live a full life with HIV, yes, but why have that added to this added complication? So that was a shocking statistic to hear from me, and a shocking theory to hear from a representative from PAHO. So I think comprehensive sexuality education is the way. While education doesn't exactly translate to behavior, it's a step, and it's a step we have to make.
Kyle, as a young man?
As a young man, I would like to see...
And a father.
I would like to see, again, young people beside the education, you know, because you can always have education and people providing and different agencies providing these services. I would like to see young people take a more proactive approach to in terms of accessing this, accessing these information, educating themselves with the right information, not from, your friend and everything, but go and validate those information that you get from your friends and all of that. So go to be proactive, go and research instead of waiting for someone to come to you. I would like to see young people again, whilst in terms of to make a balance with the information that is out there and organization that is trying to reach out to these young people. I would like to see young people make a proactive approach in terms of trying to educate themselves I would like to see youth organizations make a more proactive stand as it relates to more standing out in terms of making, not only advertising, but advocating for different agencies for the church base and everything to actually come together and realize that they are failing our young people.
Yeah.
You know, that's what is really happening. They are failing. We make all these sign on out to all these documents. We're doing this, we're doing that. We say, you know, we're God-fearing people, but we are failing our young people. And that's the bottom line. And so as a young person, I wanted to see some of these things, you know, start to change.
Yeah.
You know, young people, educators, you know, take a more proactive approach in terms of getting those education and getting those information for themselves.
And Joan?
Okay, I don't speak as a young person.
I
will very soon be speaking on behalf of the elderly. So, yes, but like Dominique said, the issue of comprehensive sexuality education, that's only a part of it. Because information is power. So you're being equipped with the information. But I would want to see the next step. That it doesn't matter where a young person goes, he or she will be able to access the services that he or she is seeking. Access these services without being discriminated against. Access these services that, hey, I can just like how I could step in and buy a soda. If I want to step into a clinic and request an HIV/AIDS test, if I want contraceptive, I should not have to be hiding or be looked upon, you know, by this adult that you should not be having sex or that, because and I think that's one of the fear of many countries or many leaders in actually supporting comprehensive sexuality education, because it's not only the provision of the education, but the provision of the services to complement the education, because that's part of the commitment as well.
Yeah.
I will also want to see that sex is I could sit down in the living room, or a young person can sit down in the living room with their parents and talk about sex without the parent feeling that, you know, hey, this is not a conversation for me, or you did this, or, you know, you did disrespect me, right? That it could be discussed in a respectful manner, and that the right information can be given. If the young person learns something new, they can come and share it with the parent, right? Without the young person feeling, you know, like, if I come and discuss my mom, I feel like I have sex now. It not necessarily means I have learned something new and I would like to share it with my family.
Yeah.
Any advice to parents that are watching right now who perhaps want to engage in the conversation but don't know the right time or the right way?
Okay, parents, yes, we feel that the discussion of sex should be between parents and child, or parents and children. The Belize Family Life Association, if there is ever the need, feel free to come in. We have materials that very, very simplified, low literacy, right? That you can come in and get that information. If you feel that you're not at that point yet, but you want your child to get the information, feel free to bring in your child. You know, we had two parents, I think it was last year, who brought in their daughters, both daughters, the kids with disability. They go to the Stella Maris. And the parents, both girls started menstruating, and they brought in their daughters to be placed on a method, right? Not because they think that their daughter was sexually active. One of the parents, almost with tears in her eyes, said, when I put my child on that bus, she's out of my care. You know, so I don't know what to do, so I am here. Help me. And those kinds of parents, power to them. Because they recognize I have a responsibility, but I'm not equipped to carry out that responsibility.
Yeah.
So now I am seeking a way in which I can equip myself to carry out my responsibility. And so parents, BFLA is there to help.
There are parents who are actually listening and taking heed of the information. Myself being a parent, I have to talk to my child about these things. And one of the things that I've noticed on the whole topic here is that, especially having to go to a store to buy a pack of condoms. Now that's something that to a lot of people is scary. They don't even want to go and buy it because of how the storekeeper or those around. So what you do is that you dog out the store, make sure nobody is in there. You ask for what you want, and then you please put it in our paper bag so that I can go. So you know there's a scary thought to it. One of the things that I wanted to for you guys to address, I've met parents who have actually said that when my child danced that kind of way, it's not a sexual act, it's actually a skill. What do you say to these parents? No, I have seen this. It's the gyrating on the street or gyrating in the home or showing some
true.
sort
there is
of
a pride.
Yeah. So what do you say to these parents that are thinking, my picnic on the dance, no sexual act? She had skills.
Yeah, maybe it is a skill because it's a skill that I can tell her I don't have.
But that's in the child, that's in the mindset of the child,
but,
so therefore.
Exactly.
Yes.
But again, it's just like we would say, being able to smoke one joint and pull on a joint is a skill, right? But there are consequences. And yes, whilst it is a skill and you're expressing and putting off that skills, their sexual expressions, their connotations in that, because when you're gyrating, and if you look at two individuals engaged in sexual activity, it's the same. And it's basically moving the body parts, right? And I would hope that parents would look at it differently, because there is the action of the dancing and then their minds all around there. So yes, whilst as a parent I say, you know what, no, your daughter can't do it, but my daughter can. The minds around there, the viewers, that is not what they're thinking. They're saying, they're not thinking that that is a skill. That kind of movement stimulates a response by those viewing. And that's what makes it dangerous.
And there are some very sick people.
Exactly. So yes, you might look at the 5-year-old and, hey, man, she can't have bones. Because she really, they put her, you know, they do her thing. And we might cheer on, but it's the minds out there. All they are looking at, man, she could be one. Yeah. You know, it's the mind. So we don't want to encourage, or we don't want to put our children at risk, right? Because that's where the danger comes in. Yes, it might be a skill and it might win a prize to be able to dance that way. But we think about what is happening around and what it does to the minds of those around.
And I smile when you brought up that going to the store and, you know, buying a condom, because these pharmacists and these storekeepers, they also have a very big role and responsibility to play. And I see this because I was a part of a program called Go Belize, whereby you go into a set of very intense training as it relates to SRH. You know, it's very helpful for young people. And so we did an early activity in terms of a male person to go and buy a condom and a female to go and buy a condom, and see what is the reaction from these storekeepers. So, you know, I went in, I bought the condom and everything, and it's like, praise, yeah, young man call, you go buy a condom, yes, buddy, yes, things are happening, yeah. When the female gonna buy the condom, you could see like the reaction, like, you go buy a condom, you go do that thing there, like, that you into, you know, and so it make females uncomfortable for even say, you know what, yes, I'm engaged in these things, but I don't want nobody see me to go buy a condom, like it's scary, like, really? And these are people that have responsibilities. These are some people that should be there to, especially the pharmacists, because they know and they're educated.
A legal responsibility.
Yes, they have that legal responsibility, and they should, you know, they should also educate. You come in, come back, and don't tell them about so contraceptive too. You know, things like that. But our society.
But I'm glad you brought up the issue with female and condoms, Kyle, because the we consider the male carrying the condom, yeah, that's responsible behavior. The female doing the same thing, you out forget something. So if I have a condom on me and I go out on a date, right, that doesn't mean that I want to have sex because I have my condom. It's just in case. Then I can make that decision.
That's right.
But the minute a female has a condom, it's as if though that's an invitation.
Yeah.
Right? Do they invite that? Not what you want. You want to have sex because you come with the condom. But it's just because, hey, that knowledge of responsible thinking and responsible behavior has now translated into a responsible behavior.
Yeah. That's a form of empowerment. You
Exactly.
are well aware of your risks
Mm-hmm.
and choose to have your own form of protection.
Exactly.
So if in a moment where there is negotiation and the male says, I don't have a condom.
I have mine. I have mine.
Exactly.
You know, there are many facets of this conversation we can get into,
I
but
know.
we really wanted to be able, we wanted to be able to scratch the surface and perhaps instigate some conversations today and some thoughts, and hopefully people will begin to see things as they really are in this country and what we need to do. We all have a responsibility.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
September 4th, even though it might seem far away,
It's right around the corner.
is right, and that's World Sexual and Reproductive Day. Right, so we can definitely prepare.
Maybe we have even some new news to deliver by then.
Because, you know, like we have World Masturbation Day, which we don't even talk about that. There are a number of days that they set aside for you to enjoy your sexuality, to talk openly. But
As my closing statement, I want to encourage everybody to get tested on regional testing day. It's June
That's coming up,
30th.
yeah.
So June 30th. So look out on social media for the runs of the sites. Come out and there will be booths set up on various topics, but the main idea is to get tested on regional testing.
And
days.
HIV is still a very relevant threat to our society, so it is important as
Know your
well.
status.
Thank you all for being here this morning and for having this very open and frank conversation with us. All right?
thank you for having us.
We're going to go ahead and take a break. When we come back, it's for Broke It Down with Jenny, so stay tuned.